So this review is on Dungeons & Dragons, Dungeonology, which I believe is the 13th book in the main Ologies series published by Candlewick Press and Templar. Now I want to say straight away, I consider myself absolutely a fan of Dungeons & Dragons. It's just I've never actually played it or read any of the actual, rule books or delved into the lore, read any of the books or the comics, etc. But I still really consider myself a fan of the brand, just in terms of what it's done for its contribution to fantasy culture and especially the artwork, which I absolutely love. I think Dungeons & Dragons has just done such a great job over the years of firmly sort of establishing the vision of what fantasy is. And the reason I tell you that I'm not very familiar with Dungeons & Dragons is so that you'll know where I'm coming from, because I was looking at other, video and text reviews that people have done on this book, and almost all of them seem to be fans of Dungeons & Dragons. So if you want to get perhaps a bit more of an informed opinion on the text of the book, I definitely reckon you should go check out one of those other reviews. But the reason I wanted to do this was sort of as an alternative perspective for, the perspective of someone who, if you aren't someone who plays role-playing games or is familiar with Dungeons & Dragons, is this book any good? And I can say absolutely 100% yes. In fact, I was so confused when I was looking at the reviews on Amazon. It's got so many 1, 2, and 3-star reviews, and I was looking, and it seems that a lot of adult D&D fans were unfamiliar with this Ology series, and they were expecting, I think, like a book on maybe like one of the regular Dungeons & Dragons sort of rule books or something that would help you with the gameplay. There's nothing in here about the actual gameplay mechanics of Dungeons & Dragons. This is what is in RPG parlance referred to as fluff, which means it's just basically like lore. It's treated as sort of like in-world non-fiction. There's nothing in here on rules or how to play the game. There's definitely an element of like the spirit of playing the game, but it treats everything as real, like it's like this is a book for you as a real adventure, almost like it's a book for your character if you were playing the game. And so I think a lot of D&D fans weren't expecting that. Obviously they're not familiar with the Ologies series, so I do actually sympathize with their confusion and frustration with the book, and if they're perhaps not happy with it, because the fact of the matter is these Ology books are very much aimed at children. That's their intended audience, particularly with regards to the text. However, I've been a big fan of the Ology books. You might have seen they've done like Dragonology, Monsterology, Egyptology, Oceanology, Wizardology, Piratology, and they're books all like this, and they're just so fantastic. They're such a notch above like any sort of books I ever had as a kid. They're just like, one thing I often complain about with books on this channel is that I hate it when books feel rushed or weren't given the proper design attention or things like that, because in this world of ebooks I always feel like I want physical books to feel and look beautiful and give you and really be something to treasure, and that attention should be poured into them. And this series of books, absolutely including this one, just does that better than probably any other children's books. Indeed, not just better than children's books, better than almost any other books I know. They are. It's, as we go through, we'll see. It's just impeccably designed. And the weird thing is, this one actually, of all the Ology books, this one actually feels the least special. But that's not saying it's bad. Not at all. It's better than 99% of all the other books out there. I'm just saying, compared to the other Ology books, this one feels the most lackluster. So the books always feature these sort of interactive elements, which are just great fun. Again, these books are an example of something that would be impossible to replicate digitally, and it's just such great fun. The information is so light, and if you are a Dungeons & Dragons aficionado, there's nothing new in here for you. I really understood that in reading the reviews from longtime fans, and even just, like I said, I don't know much about Dungeons & Dragons, but I know quite a bit about fantasy in general, and everything in here is very basic, even for people like me who aren't as familiar. You know, like they're just going on the members of an adventuring party of wizards. These masters of magic hang back so that they have room to hurl fireballs and fry foes with furious spells. So everyone knows about that's what a wizard is. But, so you can see that the text is very much geared towards children, which I think is certainly the intended audience. This is the first of the ology books that is actually on a franchise. All of the others have just been sort of on like general themes, like I said, alienology, vampirology, and this is the first one that's actually tackled a brand. I think the people who are going to get the absolute most out of this book are if you're a fan of Dungeons and Dragons and you want to be able to introduce your children to it. This is the perfect way, rather than throwing down a 500-page rule book with lots of tables and stats. This is actually a great way to get them invested in the world, and the text is talking about a lot of the concepts that you experience in the game, not in terms of mechanics, but in terms of, I guess, like the advantages and disadvantages of the races and classes, the sort of gear you're going to have, what a character's role in an adventuring party, monsters that you might encounter. I don't think there would be a better book that you could give to your kids to get them interested in this sort of stuff. And like I said, even for me as an adult who doesn't know much about Dungeons and Dragons, I didn't find the text particularly engaging. It is just very general fantasy, things you kind of already know, I guess. But the thing that drew me to the book, first of all, the presentation. Like I said, I love all the ology books. I think they're fantastic. This book's no exception. But also the art. That's the main draw for me with Dungeons and Dragons and a lot of role-playing games, is the artwork. And there is tons of art in here, not as much as one could hope, but I know there have been a couple of volumes on very general aspects of D&D, but no sort of like a comprehensive art book series. Art books for D&D are very few and far between. So one thing that the ology books are most well known for is these sort of, like I said, interactive elements. So you've got like a novice spell book. In the other ology books, almost every page, in fact, I'm pretty sure in most of them, every page does have at least one or two sort of interactive elements. This book doesn't. There are actually a few pages that, is this one? Yeah. So there's nothing in this spread that you can sort of flip or look at, which is a shame, but still, it's just so, just for just looking at it, the fantasy fan in me, I just love this stuff. And even though I was sort of saying the text is very basic, it's still great, just, imagination churning stuff. Now this next page is my absolute favorite. I was so blown away by this. It's a gigantic fold-out map. So I can't even get the whole thing in, but it is fantastic. It's made of this really great thick paper. It folds so easily, and it just looks fantastic. When I opened this, I was just so amazed. So I'll try and see. So Volo's most wondrous map of the Sword Coast. Very high quality. It feels great. It looks even better. This is definitely the best sort of map that has been produced in any of the ology books. So rogues and traps, so introducing you to concepts of treasure chests can yield rewards, or maybe they've burst into flame. What is a rogue, and let the rogue go first. Things like that. Fantastic art. So great to be able to get any sort of book that has the wonderful art of because I'm always so tempted to buy like the player's handbooks and then the campaign guides and things like that just for the art, but the books are so damn expensive. So it's wonderful just to be able to experience this. It's very short, as you can see, like 2 chapters across, with 1 page each. but just, little sketches. And I just think this is just such a great way to, if you're going to do a book that, is not perhaps very text heavy or comprehensive, you can at least do it with great style, as is evident here. And then here's a small section on different dragons, talking about some of the not just creatures in general, but actual villains, I guess, who are part of the campaigns, and heroes and legends from some of the, again, from the campaigns, and I know from some of the books. Really fantastic. It's such a shame that a lot of the people who ordered this book gave it a bad review, and I don't necessarily blame them for not getting what they expected. It is sort of like, also you've got to sort of put a bit of the blame on the publishers for not being especially clear on the advertising of who the books were. But so I really think you should give this book great consideration and try not to be completely put off by all the bad reviews, but rather try and understand where they're coming from and take in the things I've said into consideration into deciding if the book's for you, because if it does look like something you'd be interested in, then I can absolutely guarantee it's fantastic. So then this is like a book within a book. Let's see if I can get this out. Sort of confusing. I've never done anything like this in any of the ology books. Follower's Guide to the Forgotten Realms. And then it's just sort of, much smaller text in here. I think they're just trying to sort of come up with a nice way to sort of cram a bit more information about the world, because there was that great map I showed you, but there wasn't actually much on like the different locations. So because I guess they're running out of space, just to include this is really nice, I think. So they're talking about different, I guess iconic cities and things in the world. So I was really impressed with this book, and I'm glad to see that the ology series is still going on, because they've done such a fantastic job with these books, and this one is no exception.